Hey, this is Mrs. Reichelt, and next up, we are moving into the integumentary system. So this podcast is going to specifically go through the skin, although we'll talk a little bit about some skin derivatives, but we're really going to focus on the epidermis and the dermis. Okay, so first of all, we have the epidermis and the dermis. The epidermis is the outer layer of skin. The dermis then is going to be the lower layer. So if I were to draw a picture of the skin layers here, you'd have the epidermis here, then you'd have the dermis here, and then this last part, the subcutaneous tissue or the hypodermis, is going to be down here. Okay, so the epidermis is going to be stratified, squamous, epithelium. Okay, so do you remember what stratified means? Good. I hope you said more than one layer, many layers. Squamous, flattened, and then epithelium. In addition, the epidermis is also keratinized. Do you remember what that was? Hopefully you're thinking that it's hardened by a protein. The protein is keratin. Then we have the dermis. The dermis is made up of what? Hopefully you're saying dense connective tissue. Okay, so the reason that we have the hypodermis in a different color is because it's not actually part of the skin. The epidermis and the dermis makes up the skin structure, and then the hypodermis is deep to the dermis, but it's not actually part of the skin. So we'll just write, it's not part of skin, but what it does that's really beneficial is that it's going to anchor skin to underlying organs. In addition, it's going to be composed of adipose tissue. So it's going to have a cushioning effect as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start out with all of the actual layers. So in general, you have the epidermis up on top, and I guess we can draw our little skin diagram again. So we're going to have all of the layers of the epidermis up here, then the dermis is going to be here, and then the hypodermis will be here. Okay, so within the layers of the epidermis, there's actually 5 layers. So the lowest layer, or the layer that's the deepest layer of the epidermis, is about right here, and it's called the stratum basale or stratum germinativum. Okay, so I'll write those in a minute. So a couple things we need to know about stratum basale. The first, it's the deepest layer of epidermis. It lies next to the dermis, and this is the layer, the stratum basale is the layer that's actually undergoing mitosis. So what is mitosis again? Hopefully you're saying cell division. Okay, good job if you are. So the stratum basale is going to undergo mitosis, and then the daughter cells are going to be pushed upward and outward towards the more superficial layers. Okay, so we'll put basal here, and then we have stratum spinosum. Then we have stratum granulosum here. Okay, and I'm going to erase all of this, and we'll move to our next one. Then we have stratum lucidum, which is our 4th layer. There's some interesting things about stratum lucidum because it's not actually present in all parts of your body. Stratum lucidum is only found in hairless areas. So think of some hairless areas. What can you come up with? Hopefully you're saying soles of feet and your palms. Those are some good examples. And then stratum lucidum is actually composed of dead cells. So there's dead cells from the deeper strata. And then the most superficial layer of the epidermis is stratum corneum. This is the outermost layer of the epidermis. They have shingle-like dead cells that are filled with keratin, so their cells are keratinized. The reason that cells are keratinized is because it's going to form a protective barrier to prevent water loss. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and see if you can write down each of the layers of the epidermis from the deepest to the most superficial. Okay, so the deepest you should have basal. Okay, after that you should have spinosum, then granulosum, then lucidum. And remember, lucidum isn't always going to be present. If there's hair in that area, then stratum lucidum won't be there. And then the last one is the stratum corneum. Okay, so now we're getting into the dermis. So the dermis has two layers. You have the papillary layer, which is the upper dermal region, and then you have the reticular layer. So if we are to draw out our diagram, we have our epidermal layers. Then up here we're going to have this will be our dermis, except I didn't draw that very well. This will be the papillary layer, and then down here will be the reticular layer. Okay, so let's see here. So the papillary layer, they have dermal projections called dermal papillae. This is, let's see, so within here, it's going to look sort of like this. The papillae kind of look like that. So they're folding regions that way. Let's see. They also are going to have capillary loops. In addition, they're going to house pain receptors. And then the reticular layer is the deepest layer of skin. They're going to contain blood vessels, sweat and oil glands, and then they also are going to have deep pressure receptors, whereas the papillary layer is going to have some pain receptors also. So we should have, so this collectively makes up the dermis. I guess I could just draw an arrow here. Okay, so this would be the epidermis. The lowest layer is going to be basal, then spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, and then the corneum. And then below the reticular layer, which is not actually part of the skin, is the hypodermis. Okay, so the overall dermis structure, they have collagen and elastic fibers which are located throughout the dermis. Collagen is going to, let's see, so the collagen is going to give skin its toughness. And then the elastic fibers is going to give skin its elasticity quality. So it gives it its elastic quality. And then blood vessels play a role in temperature, body temperature regulation, which we'll get into all of that in second semester. So that wraps up our major skin layers and our skin structure. The next podcast is going to really go through all of the skin appendages.